Hello and welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, where we get to interview super smart people all over the world and take one topic, either in business or in life, and simplify it. And I'm so excited to introduce this very smart lady to you today. Her name is Sheena Yap Chan, and she's a blogger, podcaster, self-confidence consultant, author, and speaker whose sole purpose, drive, and passion is to help build women's self-confidence from the ground up. She currently inspires women every single day through her podcast called The Tao of Self-Confidence, where she interviews various women about their inner journey to self-confidence. I cannot wait to talk about this specific topic. I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Sheena Yap Chan. Hello, Sheena.
Hi, Mary. How are you? Thanks for having me on the show today. I'm really honored to talk about self-confidence to your listeners and why I love this topic and, want to just help women out there build their confidence.
So, okay, Sheena, let's break this down. I for some reason, this just baffles my mind that this topic keeps coming up over and over and over again. We are in 2018. Why do you think we're still talking about self-confidence, especially when related to women?
Well, for me, growing up as an Asian girl, we've been programmed to live life a certain way. And that's, go to school, get good grades, get married, get a job, never rock the boat. And, it's still to this day, we're still, programming the same things that we tell, the next generation, not realizing that really hurts our confidence because we just feel like if we don't live that one certain way, we're considered a failure, we're considered shameful or, out of line, things like that. Like, just speaking our voices is like considered not proper for a woman. Cultures and society still feel like women should live and look a certain way, not realizing like there's so many ways in life, there's so many ways to be yourself, to go out there and go after your dreams.
So
And
tell
I think
us,
the more,
Go
ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, tell us what part of the world did you grow up in?
So I was born in the Philippines. I lived in the Philippines for a couple bit, and then I moved to Canada when I was 7, and then I moved back there when I was 13, and then came back to Canada when I was 16. So I was really back and forth, and to see two different culture, like living in two different countries, like halfway across the world, you can see a huge difference. Like, coming to Canada, a lot of people are used to speaking up for themselves or share their opinions whether we agree with it or not. But in the Philippines, especially as an Asian woman, you're always told to make others happy, never make any noise. If something says something that's like you don't agree with, you don't tell them, like you just keep it to yourself, you just stay quiet and just like be the good like daughter or sister or wife or whatever it may be.
That's interesting. And are you the youngest, the oldest, the middle child?
I'm in the middle.
Aha. Do you think there's something to that as well? That maybe, the oldest are a bit more confident or the youngest are get away with more? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the oldest gets all the flack because they're like the firstborn. I find
Yes.
like they get all the responsibilities, and then it kind of lessens as you grow younger. But like, yeah, like in traditional Asian families, like the oldest sibling is the one like, who has the most responsibilities because they were the firstborn. Parents pass on like, what to do and the chores, and like if there's problems, or like they're like the mediators. That's what I've noticed in families, like in my own family and like in my relatives and stuff like
Mm.
that. So yeah,
And so then responsibilities, but also comes burdens and you are in charge of da 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 da, right?
yeah,
So
yeah. So like when we were younger, like our sister took care of us because she like if our parents were at work, she was the mother figure next in
yeah.
line, pretty much.
And just out of curiosity, I mean, obviously you're just one family out of many, many and millions around the world. But in your family, did your mother and your father both work outside the home?
Yeah, they
Mm-hmm.
both like when they moved to Canada, they started with nothing. So they literally worked from the ground up and like
Wow.
had to find a job. My mom had to learn to cook, do chores.
Yeah.
Just because in the Philippines we had maids who did stuff for us, so that was foreign to us, like to come here and do our own. to be independent and to do things like cooking and stuff like that. So yeah, and then to find jobs.
Yeah. So tell us about Sheena. Give us a little peek behind the curtain. Like, what were you like as a kid growing up in Canada?
In Canada, uh, I guess as a kid, like growing up was kind of weird, like I guess I was teased a lot in school,
Hmm.
but it wasn't like the same effect as bullying is now.
Hmm.
Um,
How so?
Either maybe I was just able to handle it, or it's just like it's not as bad as it is today, where social media is around and they just like constantly like badger the person that they're bullying. But I was teased at school, and but I didn't see it as it wasn't as bad as like now, like as it is now. I don't
Yeah.
know. I guess it's hard to explain,
And
but
when you're growing up, did your parents sort of say, "Right, you're going to be the doctor in the family. Your sister's going to be the lawyer. It's all sorted, figured out." Kind of that. Did you have that kind of pressure?
the only pressure I had from my parents was go to school and get a good job. And like they weren't too bad. Like they
Hmm.
would always say, pick something that makes you happy.
Hmm.
So, I mean, they still believe that getting a good job, going to school, getting a good education, and having a job is like a way out, or that's how you should live. But they also gave us the freedom to like choose what we wanted to do.
So, what did you want to be when you grew up? Like when you were a
To
kid?
be honest, I had no clue.
You really?
it was, I was so confused growing up because like I just chose something that would make sense for my parents or for my family or like my culture. It's like, okay, maybe I'll be an accountant. And then I realized I hate crunching numbers. Like I don't think I could do this all day or all my life. And
Yeah.
I had an office job that I worked for 12 years. And I to be honest, I really liked what I did. It was just like the environment wasn't the greatest. And I just knew that as I was sitting in my cubicle, like there was more to life than just going into work from 9 to 5 every Monday to Friday.
Yeah. So, do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert or a little bit of both?
I think a little bit of both. So it's like if I'm with my usual friends,
Hmm.
then I'm more of an extrovert because I'm really comfortable around them.
Yes.
But if I go to an event and I don't know anybody, I do tend to like keep to myself a little bit until I can like feel it out. And and then yeah, so it depends on the situations too. Like if it's like there's times where I'll just go up and talk to people, and then there's times where I won't.
Right. I'm sure there's many listeners that are listening right now, nodding their head. Yes. Yep. That is me. There's nothing I think worse sometimes than when you're just not in the mood and you have to go to a networking meeting. You're like, oh, I don't know anybody. I'm just going to jump in and jump out and not try to do much. It's hard. It's hard to kind of get over
Yeah.
that fear. So,
Yeah, for sure.
our audience is female creative entrepreneurs, and what I want to talk about is truly self-confidence that and break it down in simple terms. So why are you so passionate about this topic?
Well, for me, like self-confidence for me is huge, right? Because it drives us to go out there and, tackle our biggest fears, have the
Mm,
courage to do things that go out of our comfort zone. I find self-confidence more as like an action versus like a personality because, we all have this misconception of confidence that you have to be like this loud and boisterous person.
right.
And really, you don't have to be. Confidence is just learning to be true to yourself, be who you really are. And another thing is like authenticity is so rare nowadays, right? We live in a world where Instagram has like 20 million filters to hide from, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody shows the real you. And
Right.
and so, culturally speaking, like there's still a lot of Asian women who go out who suffer from like low self-esteem because they're pressured from their family to just get married or live a certain way. And we still see that till today, and there's so many like problems that come out of it, right? Feeling like we're not enough, feeling like we're unworthy,
Yeah.
feeling like we need other people to be happy, not realizing like it's always up to us. So
Right.
for me, like this was something huge because I also went through it, and it's like I could never find a show that could cater to that. And so I decided to create one.
Right. So you've got this new podcast. Well, it's not new anymore. The Tao of Self-Confidence. You are nearly hitting 500 episodes. That is no small feat, Sheena. I mean, like, high five to
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Thank
So,
you. Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I imagine that the journey to building that podcast has been pretty epic for you. How long ago, how many years ago was that you started this?
So it launched in September of 2015.
Uh-huh.
And I decided to do 5 shows a week, which is nuts. When you like, I didn't know any better. I was just like, I'll do 5 shows, and then people were like, "You're crazy." I was like,
Mhm.
"I don't know what you're talking about." And then I was like, "Oh, now I know what they're talking about." But
Yeah.
then, I love it. Like, I've learned to do things my way versus like what everyone the normal standards of podcasting.
Right.
I just said, this is my show. And the best thing about podcasting is that you get to be yourself.
Yes.
And so I do things that, help me and help others at the same time. Like I take season breaks because if not, I'll lose my sanity.
Yeah. Well, I
It's
imagine
my
it's
show.
it's its own business. If you're doing 5 shows a week, like you've got to run it like a business, right?
Yeah. So, I like plan ahead of time. I love Google Calendar. I have tools
Mhm.
that I set up so that it's like, automated.
Mhm.
So other than that, like I really do love having 5 shows a week because, you know, most people work 5 days a week. Most
Mhm.
people maybe want to hear a podcast versus listening to music if
Yeah.
they're stuck in traffic or if they're in the subway or if they're jogging. And, like with podcasting, they can download it at any given moment and listen to it. I've had single moms who say, like, oh, I'm giving my kids a bath and I'm listening to your episode at the same time,
Mhm.
right? Because not everyone can read a blog.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that. I mean, in your podcast, the premise is really circling around self-confidence. So you interview women, mainly women, or is it also men? Or
No, all women.
all women, all about
Yeah.
specifically self confidence and how to raise and cultivate it. So tell me then,
Yeah.
of the 500 women that you've gotten a chance to speak to, are you starting to notice patterns of what people are saying really, really works for them on how to cultivate self confidence? What are you hearing?
Yeah. So I think people need to learn that self-confidence comes in different forms. There's no one way of self-confidence, right? Because everyone's created differently. So there's going to be things that will work for you and things that won't work for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe simple things like journaling might help you, but it might not help, the person beside you, or, saying nice things to yourself. We're so great at like being our own worst critic. We have to learn to be a lot nicer, be our own best friend.
Yeah.
um, or maybe it's just listening to an audio that might help them. So like, for me, like confidence is like there's different ways to do it, and the best part is you get to pick and choose what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
And I mean, I would imagine also when a person does boost their own self confidence, rooted in the fact that it is only you that gives it to yourself, right? It's not hinged on validation from someone else. I mean, your self esteem goes up, your self love, your self worth, all of these things boost, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it has to start with you, right? It's an inside job.
Yeah.
And when you can learn to do that, like it's not going to happen overnight, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, self-confidence is a journey that you're going to do forever because we're always going to have new challenges, new roadblocks that we're going to encounter, and we have to learn how to pick ourselves back up every time we fall down.
Mm.
So it really starts from inside, learning like you're more than worthy to go out there and go after your dreams or take action in what you want. And the more you can realize, like, how powerful you are, the more you're going to keep on going. And one of the things that I noticed about the women that I've interviewed was that, they had a purpose that was bigger than them.
Mm.
Like, it was a lot bigger than them. So they were willing to go after like certain things. They were willing to step up to the plate. They were willing to be more courageous and, overcome their fears because they knew it was for a greater purpose. They knew it was going to create a positive impact, and like it didn't matter how bad it was. They just knew they can pick themselves back up again. And
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. Like, some of the women I've interviewed, like some of their purposes is so crazy. Like, and then they're able to do it. It's just, seeing that possibility. If it's possible for one person, it's possible for you too.
Yeah, and it ripples out to all the people who know you or are impacted positively by you. Yeah. I think it's really interesting. I can only speak from my own experience. The times that I have ever gone out to try to, tackle a big project or a huge goal in my life, there is a bit of blind faith. And as an entrepreneur, you just have to believe that you can do this, and that genuinely, when you genuinely believe it and you couple that with daily imperfect action towards it, it always comes true. Like, maybe not in the way you thought, but it always comes true. Have you seen that as a pattern in your own life as well?
Oh yeah, I mean, you do something and you think it's like gonna, in your head it looks like this.
Yes.
And then when you do it, it's like the total opposite.
Yeah.
And then, as women, we're so analytical. Like, why did it have to work this way? And why couldn't it work that way? And what was the meaning behind this? And why did it happen to me? So you just gotta let those questions go and realize, like, not everything has to make sense.
Yes.
It might not make sense now, but later on, you're gonna look back and you'll be like, I finally get it, and I'm glad it happened this way. And
Mm-hmm.
most people don't think like that, right? Like they just are so focused as to why did this go wrong? Why did this happen this way? And I was like that too. It's like, I would ask myself all the time, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And
Yeah.
I'm sure most people ask that, right?
Yeah.
Not realizing we can switch that and say, what is right about me? Something good must come out of this situation.
And I find that the people that I talk to, regardless of if you are spiritual or religious or otherwise, I almost sometimes feel like there is divine timing to certain things when doors open and windows shut and all of that. There's a sort of divine timing to when things actualize in your life. Do you see that in yours as well?
Yeah, totally. I mean, when I first started this podcast, everyone was like asking me, what's your monetization strategy? And I'm like, I have no clue.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I was so afraid to say I have no clue.
Yeah.
But the more I'm actually honest about it, the more people appreciate it, because there's a lot of people out there who can't figure it out. And that's
Yeah.
fine. And one of the things I've noticed about the women I interview is that they don't always have it all together. They just knew they had a purpose and they were going to go
Yes.
after it, and that we can figure it out along the way. Everything we can do, we can always figure it out along the way, because, we're so used to being programmed that we have to figure things out first before doing anything. No, we can actually just figure it out along the way. I mean, if I had to wait to figure things out before I started the podcast, I mean, I wouldn't be talking to you right now, because I mean, trying to figure out a podcast before is like it's a headache. Like, it's so
Yes.
technical.
Yes.
Like the
Yeah.
first time I edited an episode, it took me 2 hours to like edit a 5-minute audio.
Yeah, and that's the case. I
So
mean, that goes with any part of life, right? Like the very, very first time you do something, it's so scary, right? And
yeah,
you're like, oh my God, I feel like a complete Dumbo. I can't figure it out, right? And that's where you have to really like calm that negative voice in your head that's going, you'll never figure this out. Just stop now. Go start day drinking, whatever. But like, and go, no, no, it's all good. That's exactly what is expected. Again, divine timing. This is exactly where you're supposed to
yeah,
be right now, but keep taking another step and another step and another one after that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny when I shared that I've interviewed 500 women, and like
Yeah.
all these people just started coming in. They're like, wow, you've done that? Like, can we interview you? Can we talk to you about this? Can you like write an article about it? And it's like, wow, okay, like, yeah, sure. Like, for me, I didn't think it was a big deal, but for everyone was like, you would just interviewed 500 women. That's amazing. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I guess it is. I don't know. Like, because when you're doing it, you're just doing it, right? You don't
Right.
like think about it until like most people are like, how did you do it? What was it like? Was it easy? Was it hard? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just honest. I'm just brutally honest. I tell them it's not easy. Can you
Mm-hmm.
imagine trying to schedule 500 women from different time zones around the world, and then there's scheduling conflicts, and technology breaks down on you sometimes. Like,
Right.
it's not easy, but it's worth it. So,
Yeah. Well, and I
yeah.
think there's something to what you just said that I think is really interesting that we should point out and say out loud is that sometimes we are so in the mode, we're in our hamster wheel, right? We're doing the thing that we forget to stop and celebrate ourselves, right? And like go, well,
Yeah.
actually, holy smokes, I have done something pretty cool. Like this is, just stop, pause. It doesn't have to be grand fanfare and all that, but just kind of go, heck yeah, well done, Mary. Well done, Sheena. High five,
Thank you. Yeah, people don't celebrate their success. I celebrate like every little milestone that I have on my podcast, whether it's like my
Yes.
highest download day, my first month's results,
Yes.
every time I cross a certain mark, I share it. Or if it's a testimonial from someone, I share it because, then people will start asking like, well, why are these people talking about it so much? Like, then they'll start wondering and they'll start looking for it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just if you have something good that you can help people out there, there's no reason to not share it.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. And I think, I think that is a worthy and so simple way to boost your own self-confidence as well. And it's not about boasting, not at all. Like you have to flip the script on how you believe in that. It's like just genuinely going, I'm taking inventory. I just did an awesome thing. And, just to celebrate that moment. So,
Yeah, and I don't think people realize like there's people out there who are like watching your journey and they're just watching in secret. You don't know that they're watching because
yeah.
sometimes you feel like there's crickets,
Yeah.
right? Like you're doing something and all you hear is crickets. But later on in the life, you'll find people who'll be like, "I've been a long time fan." I'm like, "Really?" Like I remember one time I was at a mall in Hawaii and this random guy came up to me. He's like, "I know you. You're from Facebook. Like I follow you all the time." I'm like, "What?" It was
Yeah.
like, okay, kind of creepy a little bit, but
Yeah.
because like it's not typical, or I've had people tell me I've been a longtime fan of your podcast for a year. I'm like, you have?
Yeah.
And like you don't know because people don't say anything and they just come up later on in life. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, so some people like feel, before I would get so mad because it's like nobody cares about my podcast. Nobody says how awesome it is and all these people that I brought in, and then I had to like step back and be like, well, what are you doing? Like, is it because you're doing it for a bigger purpose or you just want to be cool? And then
Yeah.
I had to like step back and be like, no, this is a bigger thing. And so
Yeah.
like when you let all that go, like you're focused on just, creating good content, sharing it, sharing the message, sharing your success. It all
Mm-hmm.
has a purpose to it.
Yeah. And you're making a positive impact on thousands of women, Sheena, all over the world. Like that is incredible. So
Yeah.
let's switch gears a little. So a lot of our listeners are creative female entrepreneurs, right? And none of us are perfect. None of us are superhuman by any stretch of means. What do you do personally, or what have you heard other guests that you've interviewed before? What do you do when you hit a slump? You lose your mojo, like especially like coming back to work after childbirth, or you're about to leave your 9 to 5 and branch out and start your own company. What do you do when you get hit by that slump?
So for me, you know, um, this is why I mentioned having a big purpose is really important. Because when you have moments where you feel like it's the end of the world and you can't get back up from this, that purpose will help you keep going. I mean,
Mm.
I recently, couple weeks ago, I was watching this video about tofurkey. Okay, tofurkey and like the fake meat, whatever it is,
Right,
right?
the vegans
So,
version
so
of
for
Thanksgiving.
yeah, so
Yeah.
for 10 years, their profits were only $31,000 in
Wow.
a span of 10 years. And most people would just be like, "Are you crazy? You need to let that go." But because they had such a huge purpose on like educating people to eat plant-based food versus meat, they kept on going. And now we see tofurkey everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're everywhere. So I think people need this is why I say purpose is huge, right? Because if it wasn't for their purpose, then there would be no tofurkey right now. And like, so like these big companies like Apple and Microsoft, they all have a huge purpose behind their
Yeah.
company as to why they do it. Like for Apple, they want people's lives to be easier with their products and services that they do. And they do make people's lives a lot easier, right? Like for them it's like showing a lifestyle that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all the women that I've interviewed, one is like and it doesn't have to be huge like that. It can be something as simple as like, I just want to be a better role model for my kids.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
use their children as their purpose to get back up when things aren't the greatest.
Yeah.
They want to show their kids that like you can be who you want to be. You can, come out of this. If I have to be that example, then I will be that example.
Yeah.
So for me, like purpose is really huge
Yeah.
because of that.
And I think also for me, I talk a lot about my like goldfish brain. I forget sometimes why I'm working so hard or what I'm working towards. Like I'm literally putting it on a post-it note, and I have to put it by my laptop or somewhere like a bathroom mirror where I see it every day. Like I think we do so great at like goal setting at the beginning of the year, and then
Yeah.
we forget, right? So
Yeah.
just simple things like, hey, this is why you're doing what you're doing. Oh, yeah, that's it. And keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's for me a huge thing. And just learning to say to be nice to yourself,
Yes.
when I have moments where I just don't have any confidence in myself, I say three things to myself, just three things in my head or out loud or in front of the mirror. I say I am loved, I am enough, and I am worthy. And I
Yes.
just say those three things. And I feel so much better after because, as women, we just feel like we're never enough. We just feel like we're not good enough to go do something, or
Hmm.
we're not worthy enough to go after like that big position, or start our own business. I remember
Hmm.
when I was working a 9 to 5 job, I wanted to look for another job, right? Because I've been in my office job for so long, and my male coworker was like, "Why would you do that? You already get paid more than enough for a woman."
Mm.
And that actually stopped me from looking for another job, and that's why I stayed there for 12 years because I didn't think it could get any better than this. So
Yeah, it's
so that's why it's
crazy.
so important. Now I tell myself those three things.
Well, and that's it. Like you just have to rewrite the story, that storyline that's sitting in your brain, right? And in your low, low, low moments, and we all have them, right? Where we're in the valley and we can't see the horizon. It's sometimes hard to remember,
Yeah.
and remember that the things you tell yourself are stories, and the things that other people tell you about your worth and your value are stories. And so
Yeah.
you have the power to choose what you listen to and what you believe, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, one thing I've learned is just because someone tells you that doesn't mean it's true. It's just one person's perception, and perception is huge. If you perceive
Mhm.
yourself as a confident person, then yeah, you're gonna go out there and make a fool of yourself. Fall down a couple times, but you'll always get back up and prosper. But if
Mhm.
you perceive yourself as this person who has no drive, who feels sorry for themselves, and we all go through it. There's nothing wrong with that, but we have to learn how to pick ourselves back up in those moments, because sometimes we just have to feel all our feelings, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing. We're not always going to be positive, right?
Yes.
There's going to be days where we just want to hide behind the covers and watch Netflix all day and eat ice cream, and that's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that you're absolutely right. You're dead on that, your full range of emotions should be felt and should be acknowledged and journaled out, and to give yourself space to feel those things and eat all the ice cream you need to, right? But also realize, a very smart mentor of mine told me many, many, many years ago that your emotions are not your identity. Like, so emotions come and go, right? And so
Yeah,
they are not your identity, and they're just literally how you're reacting to whatever's in front of you. And you get to change it.
yeah.
That's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
think people forget that they have the power to change things in an instant.
Yeah.
One thing I do too, like when I'm starting to think something negative, I like quickly change the opposite of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I tell myself I'm ugly, I say, no, I'm actually beautiful. Like I end it with something positive. As
Yeah.
long as I end it with something positive, like, I feel better. And it just takes practice, right? Like anything, like riding a bike. You don't get it the first time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna fall down, you're gonna scrape both of your knees like I did, but you just get back up and keep biking. It's
Yeah.
kind of like self-confidence, just keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think what you're hitting on right there is mindset, how powerful your mind is in all of this, right? And I feel like I'm just scratching the surface on all this stuff. And as I really talk to, again, more smart women like you, um, your mindset is everything, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Like your how you see the world and how you think of yourself, and you know learning to let go of what other people think of you is
Yes.
is huge, right? When you can learn to stop seeking validation from people,
Mm-hmm.
like you just feel really free,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Someone might give you a bad comment, you're like, "All right, you just got to let it go." And sometimes there's sometimes we can't let it go, right? Sometimes it's just going to trigger us. And that's because it's maybe from childhood, something happened.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the things that we go through is something through our childhood, something through our culture, something our
Yes.
parents told us.
Yeah.
Like what I mentioned, like being an Asian woman, you're told to just live one way. You're told not to make any noise. You're told to please other people and sacrifice your own happiness to please others. I've seen situations where women are in really bad relationships. They get physically abused. They're treated like a piece of meat. And then when they tell their parents, it's like, oh, don't tell anybody because you're going to
Mm.
shame the family and we're going to look bad. And that's more common than we even realize.
It's so sad.
Um, yeah. And if we can help women be aware of those things and let them know that it's not okay and that there's a way out. And, you know, sometimes you're going to have to stand up for yourself in front of your parents. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's scary because I've been there, like
Mm-hmm.
it's not fun, it's terrifying, but you'll feel free. You'll feel so much freer after.
Mm-hmm.
It's, being able to, like, you can't live life like that. You can't live life where, like, you can't say anything.
Right.
We all have a voice. We should be able to learn to use it, with whatever platform we use, whether it's podcasting, blogging, social media, video,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Yeah. And it's a very good point because I feel like I don't know if you're feeling it too, but there's a shift right now. Do you feel it? There's a shift in modern culture, and I think it's coming to a head with politics, what's happening in Hollywood. I mean, there's just so much that is coming to a head where women are just saying, stop, enough, no more, right?
Yeah.
And I think what I hope for us as women all around the world, not just in English speaking countries, but literally all around the world, is that we realize we are stronger than we think we are, right? And we are braver than we believe we are. And that if we genuinely will trust each other, women, other women, and band together and be that tribe, that community that says enough together, then I think this is really what's going to help shift cultures and stop the pattern of how parents raise children. I mean, do you feel it as well?
Yeah. I mean, like, especially now, there's big movements that women are creating.
Mm,
You see more women doing different things, like the fact that I interviewed 500 women with like different careers is
mm-hmm.
amazing. Like, it just shows like what is possible, and it's like some of the craziest careers that you never even thought was possible. Like, I interviewed a woman who's just a Christmas song artist, and that's all she does is write and sing Christmas songs,
Wow.
and she's successful at it. But it doesn't mean it was easy for her to do it. It was hard, but because she believed in herself so much, she went for it.
Mm-hmm.
I've met a lady who flies a plane with her feet. She's the first armless pilot.
Wow.
And yeah, it's amazing. Like, I'm just like in awe of them. And I even interviewed a 9-year-old girl who decided to create a board game to help, kids learn how to code for fun.
Wow.
Like, it's fun to code, right? Because coding sucks when you think
Mm-hmm.
about it. Like, we're not there trying to figure out all the computer language. You see, like, interviewing these women from different backgrounds, different age ranges, and different careers really shows like we are shifting into, something that's greater and better that can help all women in the end.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And again, I think it comes back to a women helping women first and foremost, and realizing that we're not competitors. Like I think that's also, as women, we tend to be like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm competing against her, kind of thing, and stop that, whatever, wherever that voice comes from. When we band together, we're stronger. But then, just like we were talking about earlier about mindset shift in the individual, the one woman, there's almost a mindset shift that needs to happen culturally as a group, a gaggle of women, and then culturally
Yeah.
as humankind, right? Of what women are actually genuinely capable of. And I'm not necessarily one that's saying, well, women are better than men and that kind of feminist by any means. I am a feminist, but I'm not that kind. I just want the women to realize what they're fully capable of. And that comes from self confidence, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
really at the
And
root
then
of it all. And love.
one thing I've also noticed is that most women who are going through something bad in their life feel like they're doing it alone. Like they have no one to turn to, and they feel like they're the only ones who are going through these things. So one thing I've noticed is that the women who listen to the podcast are like, I feel so much better knowing I'm not the only person who goes through this, and I'm not crazy. Like the things that I'm thinking in my head are what other people are thinking. And when they realize like they're not the only ones going through it, and that there are people out there who've gone through this similar situations that you have and can come out of it, then that gives them the confidence to go out there because they're not the only ones who've gone through it. And I think that's how we can also like, stand side by side as women, is
Yes.
knowing what we've been through, relating to them, knowing that, yeah, it sucks. Yeah, it's going to be hard. Yeah, there's days where you're not going to have good days, but in the end, it's all worth it.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's no truer word said there. So I'd like to end up with a few questions I like to ask all of my guests that come on. First and foremost, Sheena, um, what are you reading these days? Is there any one great book or blog that is totally inspiring you or totally challenging you right now?
So right now, to be honest, I'm just being honest. I really like listening to my own episodes. I really like listening to women's stories of what they've been through and how they're able to overcome it. And it really just helps me realize like I'm okay. And even
Yeah.
just watching like biographies of people
Mm-hmm.
like on Netflix or on the internet, that really helps me because I like using people's real life experiences and knowing that, oh, okay, so I was watching the biography of Walt Disney,
Mm.
and he went through so many failures before he could actually succeed. Like
Yes.
just when he was getting good, like something hits him again, and you just like feel for the guy. You're like, oh my god, like when is he gonna catch a break, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it just makes me feel better knowing that, like that's how entrepreneurship is. It's not just a straight line and everything's hunky dory. It's like, a roller coaster. It's gonna
Mm-hmm.
like that's ups, that's downs. It's gonna be upside down. You're gonna be like in loops, but in the end, you'll be okay. So I like watching that, and movies that are really inspiring. Like I recently watched the movie Wonder,
Mm.
which was great because it's about people's individuality and learning to accept it and learning to be okay with it. And actually, a lot of people think like just because you're one person, you can't make a difference. But you can. One
Mm-hmm.
person can make a difference. And just yeah, like for me, sometimes reading, I tend to fall asleep. So that's why sometimes I like listening to
Yeah.
my own episodes and watching movies because I like the real life experience or situations that happens in real life, and you know like we can use it to our own life and be like, oh, that's okay. So like one lesson that I've learned was, you know when we have a lot of projects that we want to start, sometimes we don't finish it because life gets in the way. you
Mm-hmm.
know Things happen. Maybe we have to put that project on hold, but it doesn't mean it's over. I mean, you can always get back to it anytime, right? And there was a movie where I saw this woman, like, she had like one paper left to write to get her degree, but she did it 10 years after because life got in the way, and she had a kid and something happened to the kid, and once that was okay, she got back and wrote that last paper and she finished it.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that really helped me. It was like, oh my God, I feel so much better knowing like just because you put it off doesn't mean your dreams are over. Like it just, life happens, things happen that we can't control, but like you mentioned, the divine timing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, so Sheena, we also like to ask everybody tell us one person that you know. Maybe it's one of your 500 guests, but maybe it's somebody that's in your circle of friends or trusted network. One person you know that we should interview on the Simplifiers podcast that's really smart about one topic in business or in life and could simplify it for us. Who should we interview and why?
For me, I think the lady who was born with no arms, I think she would be a great guest just because it's just like she did something that was totally impossible. Like she made the impossible possible. And, there's no complex way of doing it. She just did it. learning to accept herself, learning to believe in herself, learning in her capabilities. And now she goes all over the world, getting speaking gigs. She wrote a book. People are asking her to speak on stages.
What's her name?
I think her name is Jessica Cox. It's Cox, her last name.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And
Yeah.
she really had a great story on what made her realize to just really accept herself for who she is, and that maybe this happened to her for a reason, and she saw it as something good versus as something like terrible.
Yeah. Well, that would be great to interview her, definitely. So we believe that gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Sheena, tell me, what are you grateful for right now? Is there one person or thing that you're super grateful for?
For me, I'm really grateful for podcasting
Mm-hmm.
and like the community. Like I finally found a community that really, really lets you be okay with who you are. Like
Mm-hmm.
self-expression is like the main thing. And that was, I think, one takeaway that I got about podcasting that made me realize I was in the right platform to use my voice. Because I went to a podcasting event and I saw I forget his name, Kevin Smith, speak
Yes.
on stage.
Yes.
And he curses like a trucker, but he didn't apologize for it. And his message was just like, podcasting is a great form of self-expression.
Mm-hmm.
And when you learn to be yourself, you create, you attract people coming to you because you're just honest, about what you're going through and, your thoughts. And there's going to be people out there who will resonate with you and some won't, but, the right people will resonate with you.
Yeah.
So, I'm really thankful for this platform, because then we wouldn't be talking.
So tell me, Sheena, what is one superpower that you possess? And how did you develop that skill or trait over time?
So I think the one thing I've gotten good now in my superpower is being able to connect with people and like just getting guests on my show.
Mm-hmm.
After getting 500 women, it does take work, because when you first ask somebody, it's scary. You're
Yes.
afraid of rejection. You're afraid they're going to say no, and you're going to feel like the lowest person in the world, because it's like, I can't get anybody on my guest. But, it just started out with me randomly, like not randomly, but like, I just knew they were fit for the podcast. And then so I'll just message them regardless, what kind of influence they had. Because if they said no, I would just keep going until, I reach whatever number that is, right?
Yeah.
So just being able to just, find an email address, send it to them. And, I would send a lot in a day, and then I'd probably get like 30% of them or half of them,
Yeah.
right? And I think, people forget, like, you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with doing that. And when you are, you'll just keep going no matter what. And then
Mm-hmm.
because I was able to contact them, then some of them started referring me other people or introducing me to new people. So, you know, I never would have thought I could even contact that many women or interview many women. But as I kept on doing it, it just gets easier, and I just get better at it. So yeah.
I love it. Well, I think that you are an absolute inspiration for myself as well. I mean, as I am branching out, starting this new podcast, we're just getting our feet under ourselves. But, it's incredible. It certainly is incredible. I might be leaning on you a little bit for some advice here and there.
Of course, no worries.
Yeah. So, given everything that we talked about today on self confidence, and thank you again so much for being on the podcast, where can people find you online? Where do you hang out the most?
So if you look up my name on Google, Sheena Yap Chan, I'm like the only Sheena Yap Chan you'll ever find on the internet. So that's one good thing. So, I have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter,
Yes.
LinkedIn. You can also check out the podcast, The Tao of Self-Confidence, on Apple Podcasts. I have to remember it's now called Apple Podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Apple Podcast, Stitcher, and I recently just got it's now on Spotify, which is great.
Amazing.
And or you can go to the website, thetaoofselfconfidence.com, and you can listen to it there. And yeah, that's where I am.
Great. And we'll put all those links down in the show notes so you guys can connect with Sheena directly. And, you are such an inspiration. Keep going. What I'd like to end on is this. somebody's listened to this episode and they're feeling a little bit timid, but there's something that you said that really rung true in their ears, and they're thinking about, I don't know, starting a big crazy project. Maybe they're starting a podcast themselves. Who knows? If there is one thing you could whisper into her ear right now to encourage her on her journey, what would you say to her right now?
So the one thing I would say is just keep going, because not every day won't be perfect. There's going to be bad days. We're going to have failures, but failures doesn't mean it's the end. It's just temporary, a moment of temporary defeat, and you can get back at any moment. You can get back up and keep going. I mean, we've all faced through it. We've all faced through failure. I mean, we have to see failure as something good, because it teaches us something. It teaches us to be persistent and resilient and stronger. And I believe that every situation in life, there's a learning lesson for it. So for me, it's just keep going, even when you have bad days, because we all have bad days. I mean, there was moments where I just wanted to quit the podcast altogether, but I knew it served a purpose, so I just kept going.
Sheena Yap Chan of the Tao of Self-Confidence podcast, thank you so much for being on today.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here.